So, I my bed's different. My bed's different because I changed rooms. My hair's a mess. I had to take a shower, but I I've been like walking around all day, and I needed to take a nap, and I kind of slept for a while. I go get a bus ticket because as much fun as Laredo, Texas is, I needed to go, and just kind of following my gut feelings on this. I'm trying to experiment, which is something I have done before, but I kind of have more resources at my disposal this time. So last year, I ran out to LA for a very brief period of time, just to just to see what was capable, what I was capable of. And what I mean by that is what experience I would have if I just kind of let go of being afraid of doing things and just doing it. So I hopped on a bus. This isn't one of my most proudest moments, but not one of my most embarrassing either. But I ended up in the seedy part of town, and had hooked up with this homeless fellow, and he's someone that I had met months before, and we kind of went on this little adventure that ended up with some pot, some vodka, and some crack cocaine, which probably isn't the best of choices, and not something I do very often, by the way. But that night, I ended up on a bus to Los Angeles, which is something I was planning on doing anyway. Uh, um, at the time, at that time, I was, how do you say it? I was looking to make a change because I wanted to see what would happen. I have experienced a lot of interesting and weird weird things over the past 3 years. So just um, just allowing myself to let go of things and trust that I knew what was best. That's kind of where I wanted to go with this whole experiment. And there was three places I was thinking about at the time, between LA, Miami, and Los Angeles. And why those three? I don't know. Those were just the three that came to my mind. All for varying reasons. Intuitively, those seem like the most obvious of choices to me, only for the fact that I have some kind of connection to each of them in some degree. Not so much Miami. I don't know what the hell Miami came from, but ultimately Los Angeles was where I went. And this particular day, I ended up on a bus, and 2 days later, I was in Los Angeles, which was probably one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had. Even though I was only there for 3 days, but this moment in Texas, it was something similar. Recently, on Halloween, you know what? We can back it up to the day before Halloween, Devil's Night, Mischief Night, however you want to call it. I like saying Devil's Night only because it sounds cooler. And why am I always lying down? I don't know. Just because I like doing this when I'm lying down. I'm cozy, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I have to go to bed soon because I have the bus I have to catch in the morning. Um, and like I was saying, like I went out there just to see what would happen if I just followed my internal guidance system, intuition, whatever you want to call it. And because of that, I went on this really interesting journey around the town. And granted, it was only 2 days, 2.5 days, but during that time, I had met a whole bunch of people. I had experienced a whole bunch of really interesting phenomena that had meaning for me, whether or not anybody else would get it. It's not really the point, because ultimately everything that I do is for me. Because I can't really do anything for anybody else if I can't do anything for me. If I can't, what's the best way of putting that? If I can't provide for myself, how can I provide for anybody else? And that's kind of where all of my life has been going over the past couple of years. Because, like most people, for the longest time I was working jobs that I didn't care for, and doing things that I just didn't want to do. So when I had this breakthrough 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, it was on November 4th, 2017, which was, which coincided with me having abstained from drinking for 2 months. Prior to that, I had been drinking a lot. I drank a lot, almost every day, to clear my mind, to make myself feel better about the choices that I had made throughout my life. And when, after 2 months of not drinking, I started to realize, holy shit, like, I really fucked my life up. Or not so much that I fucked my life up, but I just didn't like the way that my life was turning out, because I started to look at everyone around me and go, I could do a lot better than this. Not in the sense that, like, oh, I can get better people than this, because the people were fine. The people were fantastic. I love the people. It was my behavior and my way about going about things that I thought was the problem. And people could say, like, even if people would say, like, oh, you know, you were fine, you were doing what you were doing. You know what? That's great and all, but I was the one that was the problem. Because I see it, because I think back and go, you know what, that way that I used to be is not how I envisioned myself to be. And so I took a lot of time to really reflect on that stuff. And over the course of the past 3 years, that's been a lot of what I've been doing. And yeah, I like to dabble in some weird shit, but who doesn't? Everybody has their quirks and their eccentric interests to some degree or another, at least I would think. I can't imagine that everybody just likes to sit in front of the TV all day. There are those times when you're by yourself and you live that imaginary vision in your head of who you want to be and what you want to be doing. And it just happened to be that the more that I started to reflect and the more that I started to remember, because a lot of what I've noticed was the more that I would think backwards, more that I would meditate on who I was and where I came from, the more that I started to realize that there was clearly this specific order of events that almost, not almost, but made perfect sense as to why I was where I was at the time. There's a thing I like to say that right now, right now, in this room, talking, I'm recording myself talking, everything that's happening right this moment is the sum of everything that came before it. And you can say that for any moment, but when you really dig into that and see what that means and break down the events of your life in a cause and effect sort of way, you start to see that you start to see that there's a lot more going on than what you may realize. That you can call it whatever you want, a series of coincidences, a series of divine inspired experiences, whatever. I don't know how to explain it for people, because everyone is going to look at it differently. But at the same time, everybody's experiencing the same thing. It just depends on how much time and effort you want to put into it. It's just my nature to want to break things down and to understand them better. For instance, which is why I write. I have all my notebooks. I have a couple notebooks with me. One that's already finished and one that I'm working on. But I like to keep my diaries, I like saying diaries, I like to keep them so that I have a point of reference as to where I was. And what I like to do is I just like to write about what's on my mind, and it really depends on what it is that I'm trying to get out of it. And most of the time, I'm just writing to get shit off my chest, because I can't expect to be able to burden one person with so much stuff, because I have a lot going on in my mind all the time. And it's been that way since I was a kid, and I think a lot of what had been bringing me down throughout my life was the fact that I wasn't able to release this stuff, and I was holding on to so much crap that it was just weighing on me. And then once it was weighing on me, it was reflecting out into everybody else around me, because it's not a secret that I was like this cuckoo bird. And even to a degree, even still, I have bizarre tendencies from time to time. But it wasn't until I started to really listen to them and pay attention to what I was feeling and what I was thinking, and listening to the voices in my head, my subconscious, that was surfacing. Now, what was weird for me, at least, and I can't speak for anybody else, is that the more that I was able to clear out, the more that I was able to look at, and the more that I was able to learn from, which was really interesting, because once I started to learn from my past, and to see how I grew from it, the more I started to realize that the things that were bringing me down, the things that were holding me back, were starting to dissolve a little bit. And it was really interesting to see me start to break out of this shell that I had built around myself over the past 37 years at the time. And the more that I started to do that, the more comfortable I started becoming in my own skin, which was a big thing for me when I was younger. And I say younger, even 37, like I'm 40 now, so that was 3 years ago. A lot has changed, and a lot has happened over that course of time, that I feel has been beneficial both to me and to people around me. Whether they see it or not, it's not necessarily the case, my concern. But for me to see who I was, who I am, and who I've been becoming, it's really fascinating to really break that down and to see how the sequence of events that have led to this point kind of almost were like just dropped in my lap. So if you watch the last video, like what I was talking about, I kind of like briefly alluded to the sequence of events that led to me being in Texas in the first place. So the way that worked was on the night before Halloween, I, lying in bed, similar to what I'm doing now, because I feel I do my best work when I'm just chilled out and relaxed, and I don't like to lie in bed all day. I like to go out and I like to actually do things, much more than lying in bed. But bed's comfortable, so comfortable. Something that somebody inspired me to do. I was lying in bed, and I had been afraid to, how am I putting this? Because I'm sounding a little fucked up. I hold back a lot at times. And though it may not seem that way, I do hold back a lot. And on this particular day, because it was Halloween, and I love Halloween, it's my favorite holiday. And it is a holiday. People don't, I think people disregard it, but whatever. This particular mischief night, devil's night, I decided I wanted to do something weird for Halloween. And so I broke out some of my darker tarot cards, and I made this huge post on Facebook of this reading that I did. I pulled out 5 cards, and I just kind of did like an interpretation going down the line, and to show how they were all interconnected, these randomly pulled cards. And it was something that I was avoiding doing because of some personal reasons that were kind of holding me back. And I was really afraid, thinking about what people were going to think if I showed this side of me. And I said, fuck it. said, fuck it. Let me just do this. Let me just get it out of the way. Let me break through this fear of caring what other people are going to say and what other people are going to think. It's not that people didn't know I read tarot cards. I'm weird. It's just in my nature. So I did this, and it was like a huge weight being lifted off my shoulders. And I was actually really impressed because typically it requires me to smoke marijuana to break through a lot of those barriers with me. But this time I had held off, and I wanted to see just how deeply I can dig without the drugs. And what I found was I can go just as deep. I can go just as far without than I can with. And that's actually been something that's been coming to me, is that I'm starting to notice that the marijuana, which was helping me for a very long time, it is very beneficial for me. It was actually kind of bringing me down a little bit. It was bringing me back. And the reason I say that is a lot of the reason that I smoke marijuana is to force myself to have anxiety attacks, depression attacks, paranoia spells, schizophrenic episodes. Though I realize those things, those are just labels. I mean, all of those things are natural processes that we need to go to. I don't want to say we, because I'm just talking for myself, that we need to go to. And we means me and all the other guys that are living in here. That we need to go through in order to break out of our shell, to break out of old patterns and behaviors. And it's kind of fucked up. I just like having panic attacks. I'm a masochist for emotional breakdowns. I don't know what it is. It started as, like I was saying earlier, when I first started this process, I started to notice that I was having a lot of panic attacks. I thought I was fucking going crazy for a while. And for all intents and purposes, I was. My sense of reality was really breaking down, and I didn't know what was real and what wasn't anymore. But the more that it was happening, and a lot of it was going on out of my control. There was nothing I can do about it. It eventually dawned on me that when I was going through these experiences, what was happening was I was releasing all of these pent-up old emotions and these old feelings and these old thought patterns. And the more that I broke out of them, the more that I started to find that I was able to think more clearly. I was able to broaden my horizons. I was more able to expand on my conscious awareness of what was going on around me and what was going on inside of me, to the point that I started to realize, like, everything that I thought I knew, I don't really know for shit. And people say that the only people who really know anything are the people that realize that they know nothing. And yeah, to a degree, that makes sense. And you can even look at it from a Jedi standpoint. Like, you got to unlearn everything that you learned. And that has really served me extremely well. Because by being able to let go of what you think you know, it allows you to realize that there's more than just that. There's a much bigger, much more broader sense of reality that's out there that's waiting to be tapped into. And that's a little hard to explain. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. So this night last week, Devil's Night, I wrote this big post and I threw it out there, and though I was afraid about what people were going to say, because most of the time I post on social media, it's just like my own little vampiric thing where I just need a little bit of attention. I need to throw myself out there and just see what people think about it, because I want to know. I'm curious. Not to mention the fact that it's also there for me to break out and go, fuck it. Let me just get this out of the way. Let me just do this and just do what I'm feeling. Do what I feel is right. And so I did. And it felt great. Like, I was scared as fuck. Like, for the next day, like, I was still scared about, oh my God, what are people going to say? What are people going to say? I call myself the Antichrist, and I'm writing this crazy thing. Not everybody's into tarot cards the way that I am. And I'm not really even, how do you say it? I don't live my life by them, and I don't really use them too often anymore. But I do like to break them out once in a while to have some fun. They help to for me, what they've done is they help me look at different aspects of my life that I may have ignored, or they can show me also different perspectives to view certain aspects of my life that I didn't think of at the time. Not to say that that wouldn't be able to happen without them, but they have been a good resource to kind of get the ball rolling, if you follow me. So basically, once I did that, after I did that, I just smoked a shit ton of pot. Just going, oh my god, what did I do? And then I just watched I watched the Omen trilogy, favorite movies. And that was kind of it. I just went about my day. And the next day on Halloween, I woke up still a little distraught, because I hold on to things. I was trying to let go of this whole like scared feeling. Like, I don't understand why I'm so scared. What the fuck am I so scared of? And over the past couple of weeks, I wanted to go visit some family. And this particular day on Halloween, I went for a walk, and while I was out, I had this message come to me. Because when I smoke pot, obviously it opens my mind to different things, and I heard a voice in my head going, you know what, you should probably go see your grandmother. And later on that day, after this and that, I ended up at my grandmother's house. While I was there, it was just a normal day. Everything was going exactly the way that I thought it would. But that night, a friend of mine had reached out and had asked me to go on this trip to Laredo. The timing was absolutely perfect because of the fact that this was something I've been wanting to do, not necessarily come to Laredo, Texas, because I had absolutely no interest in Laredo, Texas, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think I've ever heard of it before. But this just seemed like a perfect opportunity to get away, to go on a road trip, which is something I've been wanting to do for a while. And luckily I had somebody else with me, or at least there was an intention behind it. It wasn't just hopping on a bus and disappearing to a faraway place. No, this was something else. Not to mention, it was also a job. It was a job that that one of the first jobs for my company. Luckily, I think it was invoice number 006. And originally we were supposed to leave on a specific date, which was last Wednesday. But due to circumstances that were completely outside of my control, we had to postpone the trip for a couple days. And over that time, I was able to, I just kind of went about my day. Got my hair cut, hung out with my family members, and the closer I got to the day of leaving, the more reasons to come to Texas started to pop up, which is really interesting, because I have no interest in being here whatsoever. I never thought of coming to Texas, even though I always wanted to be on the Alex Jones show, but I don't really have a reason to be. I like Alex Jones. I haven't listened to Alex Jones in years, but anyway. Like I said, the more I started to realize, like, you know what, maybe going to Texas is actually a really good idea. Like, it might actually be incredibly beneficial to what I do and for just me personally to come here. And so we did. We ended up leaving on Friday, and it was an amazing trip down here. And even as we were driving, the more that I was reconnecting with this old friend, the more it started making sense. Like, wow, you know, this is something that I need to be doing right now. I need to get away. Because as the further we got, the more I started to realize how things in my life were actually holding me back from doing the things that I want to be doing. Now, granted, I don't do much more than lie in bed and rape some days. But at the same time, I started to realize how certain relationships just weren't exactly where I needed them to be. That I needed a break from a lot of things, because I've lived in New Jersey my entire life, and I've always been surrounded by my family, one degree or another, and friends. So by being able to kind of get away, because right now, I mean, we left on Friday, so technically this is day 5 or 6, 5 or 6 of me being gone, and I don't think I've actually been gone that long from people for this length of time. And the more time that seems to pass, the more I'm starting to go, okay, I get that. I needed to break away from this. I needed to break away from that. I need to put more thought into why this is going on or why that's going on. And it's been such an incredible vacation. We call it vacation. So far. So right now. So when we got here, it was almost as if my original plan was to kind of just drop them off and leave. And take a bus or a plane home. But like I said, throughout the week, I started to find more reason to at least stay another day, or maybe stay a couple more days. Or maybe even, as we were driving, I started to realize, there's a lot of places I wanted to go to that I haven't been before, that are technically on my way home. Little pit stops. So I've just been kind of going with the flow and just allowing things to happen. And today was the first day that I spent entirely by myself. Though I've been having a lot of ideas and a lot of inspiration coming to me over the past few days, it just seems to be that the more freedom I'm having from anybody else, the more that I'm starting to see, like, oh my God, yeah, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this. And for instance, like, I'm going to Dallas tomorrow, and I have some family that lives up there that I may or may not see, but what's really important is that I found reasons to actually be in Dallas. Like, there's things I want to do. Like I said, I'm into some weird shit. So my intention is to go out to Mount Carmel, where the Waco massacre was. And also, I just realized today that where JFK was shot is in Dallas. I forgot all about that. And I think, didn't he die in November? I gotta look into that. But these are places I want to go to. Why? Because I am into energy, into feeling energy, which is really probably needs its own video to explain, because it's hard to explain that when it's hard to explain that, I think, because and the reason I say it's hard to explain is because I know I understand the concept and I understand what I mean when I say shit like that, but to find the words to properly explain what that means to me is a little more difficult, because it sounds fucking crazy. Like, what does that mean? I'm sensitive to energy. Let me get that. I mean, think of it like, when someone's in a bad mood, you can just tell if someone walks in a room and they just bring the whole room down. You're like, oh my God, this motherfucker! I can't believe this. I got to deal with this now. That's kind of it. Like, you can sense how they're feeling, and yeah, it could be just the way that they're acting, the tone of their voice, but that's what I mean. That energy that they're putting off, you are capable of feeling it, seeing it, and going, yeah, and how they're going to be before they even start doing whatever it is that they're doing. But it goes further than that. That's just an early stage of that sensitivity. It actually expands beyond that if you really try to fine tune it, which is possible, and it requires a lot of internal introspective work that not everyone is comfortable doing. That, as far as I know, I don't really know. I'm just talking for myself. It's not easy. It's a pain in the ass. It requires a lot of crying and being pissed off, and sometimes punching telephone poles. But the more that you and the more that I became aware of my own mental and emotional states, the more that I found that it was easier to relate to other people's. But also at the same time, I deal with a lot of weird shit. So some of those energies that you can potentially become sensitive to don't necessarily have to come from people. Sometimes you can feel just being in a place. If you ever went to like a haunted house, for instance, and you're like, oh my God, this is fucking creepy. This is so creepy in here. And then later you find out like something weird happened there. That is the same thing. And the reasoning behind like Waco and this JFK location is just that. I wanna know it. I wanna feel those places, and I want to write about what it is that they make me feel. What comes to my mind. Like I said, I haven't been smoking pot, and that's usually where I feel it the most. But I don't need pot to do that, and I've realized that. I'm not saying that I need pot to feel those things, but I am very excited to see what comes up for me being in those places, because those are significant events, and the things that happen there are massive. So I find it incredibly fascinating to see what I'll be able to get out of it, because I know how I am. I know how my experiences throughout the past few years have kind of developed the way that I look at things and the way that I feel things. So I want to see how that is. I want to really like feel that, because it's weird. I like weird shit, but that's kind of it. I don't know. I just needed to get this out. I needed to. I'm trying an experiment of seeing where life takes you naturally without having to put too much thought behind stuff. Too much thought. That's all I do is think. That's all I do is think and plan, and then break down my plans and replan, and usually opportunity pops up. I don't want to get into the whole law of attraction and vibrational stuff, but something that kind of goes over a lot of people's heads sometimes. They're like, what the fuck does that mean? For good reason. But sometimes it's that. So that's about it. I don't know if I really made a point with all of this. I think I may have come full circle. Maybe not yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But like I was saying, I just wanted to get some of this shit out, because I feel as though I need to. I just need to. Why? I don't know. It's just I just feel like I do. There's like a little birdie inside my head going, yeah, you got to do this right now. You have to say these things. Say these things. What does that even mean? I don't know. The words are just coming out. It's not like I have a script that I'm reading off of. It's just letting my mouth just say the stuff. So, plus I like hearing myself talk. I think that's a big thing. I like hearing the words come out of my mouth. Plus, it's giving me some other stuff to think about. Like, do I really want to do all the things that I say that I want to do? Of course I do. But at the same time, there's other things I want to do. I do have to figure out what I'm doing from here. But I guess it's kind of helping. So that's it for now. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed because I got to wake up early.